Hello my singing friends and mask making friends. Well, it's October 24th today, and today I happen to have sung at a wedding, and 2 weeks ago I sang at a wedding, October 10th, and back in September I sang at a wedding as well, and each time I sang with a different mask. So I've got a bit of experience with different combinations of fabrics and different fits, and I thought it would be a good time to have a bit of a conversation, a little vlog about the 3 different masks and how I felt breathing in the masks, and also I asked the organist to give me a sense of how the sound was muffled. So I have the 3 masks here. Back in September I sang with the black mask. October 10th it was the blue mask, and today was this red mask that I just made last night. And really they're in order of preference. So the first one, the black mask, it's made out of you could call it like a sheeting fabric or a sateen or percale, and this is super high thread count. It's just 2 layers of that particular cotton. There is the interfacing, the very light interfacing inside, but when you hold up these 2 layers of this black fabric, it completely blocks out light. It would make a great blackout blind if you don't want to get the sun in the morning. So this is quite tightly woven, which makes it difficult to breathe in. There's always a trade-off between how tightly woven a fabric might be and the breathability. And so this one was the hardest one to breathe in, and it's also the one that the organist told me that she felt that the sound was muffled. I have to admit I was a bit discouraged, but this was really good information to have at the time. So then I made another mask for the wedding on October 10th, and this one was a huge improvement. So on the inside I have the white fabric, which is the same as the black fabric, so it's super high thread count. I have the interfacing, very light interfacing on all the sides, and I have this quilter's cotton on the outside. So it was already a bit more breathable, but it still had some issues. I was still struggling at times, not always, with some of the breathing, and the organist felt it was better than the black mask, but she still said it did sound a little muffled. Now the red mask was much better, super breathable, and also the organist said it sounded pretty much like I wasn't wearing a mask. And this one has on the inside a much looser weave cotton on the inside, still a decent thread count, and then on the in between I have non-woven polypropylene as my interfacing layer, and then on the outside I have quilter's cotton with a good thread count. This was super comfortable to breathe in. Also, in terms of breathing, what happens when you have a mask like this one that's difficult to breathe in, you end up cheating. So you end up pulling the sides and letting in some air, or simply the air will get sucked in through the sides rather than being sucked through the fabric and allowing the fabric to do the filtering. So this is of concern if you need to get air through gaps as opposed to through your fabric. So that's always a balancing act to keep in mind with any mask. So I did have a bit of leakage as well in this particular mask. It was especially around the sides here that I was getting a bit of airflow. Not so much around the nose because I have a good nose bridge there, but I was getting some leakage. This one, the fit is perfect. I have terrific seal all around the face, and I really felt that I was breathing through the fabric as opposed to through the gaps. So I'm going to zoom in the camera for the different masks, and I just wanted to talk about a few tips for these masks as to how I got a better fit around the face for each mask. So here is how I constructed my favorite mask so far. So let's start with the pattern. I started off with the top piece at 95%. So I just printed off the pattern and then copied it, set at 95% sizing. And then the middle piece I also printed at 95%. But the bottom piece I left at 100%. I left it as is. And of course the little tabs are going to be the same size, so you don't need to change that. Now of course, because my bottom piece is at 100% compared to the rest of the mask, there's going to be some gathering, and it's very much like trying to put a sleeve inside a blouse, so inside the armhole of a blouse. So you do need to do some gathering. For the blue mask, I did the same thing. I had 95% on the top and the front, but when I gathered the bottom piece, I gathered it all around the front of the mask, but this time with the red mask, I focused the gathering at the front of the mask. And I found that that was really useful for movement. So for the chin area, it just helped increase this area and just helps with the freedom of movement. For this mask, and I did the same for the other two, and I did the burrito method, so you have really nicely tucked away seams. There's no raw seam edges. So you can check out my earlier video on how to do the burrito method. Also for both masks, I put in the horsehair. I just really do enjoy the horsehair. It's really lightweight, but just so you know, it's a bit fussy to work with, and you do have to finish the edges because they're sharp and they also fray. So you do need to put maybe a piece of interfacing or another cotton just to finish that edge so that it stays nice and stable. By the way, with the black mask, I did test to see if the horsehair would survive the dryer, and it didn't seem to do too well. It seemed to shrink a little, so I would suggest not putting any mask that you do with horsehair in the dryer. So one of the key factors of this mask is the nose wire. So based on some feedback from people in the Facebook group, and I encourage people to join the Facebook group for all kinds of tips and tricks, and one of the things I learned from the people in the Facebook group is to have a removable nose wire. And in my case, I like to put in that removable nose wire after the fact, as one of the last steps. And what I do is I use some regular bias tape, double fold bias tape. So it comes pre-folded, and so I sew that in. Some people actually build in that removable wire by putting in a buttonhole, but for me buttonholes are a little too fussy. I'm not very good at buttonholes, so I much prefer this option. So I leave one of the ends open, and different from the other, what I've suggested in the pattern, I think my initial pattern was about 3 inches for the nose wire. But in this case, I decided to go much bigger. And this one is over 4 inches long. And I might even go wider than that because I still have room. And the advantage to that, and you'll see at the end of the video when I actually wear the mask, it allows me to shape around the nose, but also shape under the eyes. So just for comparison, I've got a ruler here. And so you can see the inch measurements. And this wire is over 4 inches long. And in the other masks that I did, I used this one, which I actually quite like. It's a bit like a coffee bag tie or those cookie bags. It has 2 wires and it's encased in plastic. And I actually do like them also for my regular masks. They're about 4 inches. And the metal piece that I used earlier on in other videos, this is an aluminum piece. And that's just 3.5 inches. It's a decent size, but I much prefer having the longer size. And the green wire that you see there is actually just simply garden wire that you can get at the garden center, at your hardware store. And I don't know if it's available year-round, but I bought this just a couple of weeks ago, and we're in October now, so I have a feeling that it's available probably year-round. And the dollar store also carries this kind of wire, so this allows you to do whatever length you like, and it's actually quite easy to shape and quite comfortable. So I do like this for the singer's mask. So I would suggest, if you actually make masks for other people, maybe allow them to have the longest possible channel, and then people can switch up the metal piece just like just to their heart's content, the kind of metal piece that they like. And I do want to speak about this particular one. This one shapes really well. However, if you're prone to bending your wire as opposed to shaping your wire, it will eventually break. So you want to shape the wire and give it a curve as opposed to simply bending it. And if you do that, eventually where you're bending it will get weak, and that's why these tend to break. But if you just shape them, they'll last quite well. An advantage also of having the wire removable is that you can remove it for washing. If you find that it's getting all sort of tangled up in the wash, you can remove it before washing your mask. The other part that I like to have in this mask as well is to have an elastic under the chin. So in this case, again, I used the bias strip and I added it after the fact at the very end. Some people on the Facebook page, some of the mask makers, will design the mask to have the elastic encased in the mask itself. I found it easier to add after the fact. Now if I stretch this out, this bias strip is just under about 5 inches, and the elastic that I inserted in there is about 4 inches. So it's about a ratio, for me, it was about a ratio of 4 to 5. So that can give you an idea. But by adding it after the fact is that you can adjust the elastic to suit you. All of these tips I learned from our Facebook group. So I encourage you, if you're on Facebook, do join the group Mask for Performers, and you'll continue getting some great tips. And finally, I want to talk about the ear loops. So you'll notice that on this mask, I positioned the ear loops not right up at the top. I positioned them about a good 1/4 inch, if not more, almost a 1/2 inch below the side. So I brought them inside, and that measures just about, probably just under 2 inches. So this is, I'll be showing this at the end of the video with the mask on me, and you'll see that it's really important that these two elastics are actually quite narrow in their positioning, because your ear isn't that big, the part that's actually connected to your head. And so if the elastics are too far on the outside, your mask will end up gaping. So I'll be showing that a bit later. But the final thing I want to mention about the ear loops, and this could apply to ties as well, the ties that go around your head, it's good to have them going over the mask, because this helps press the fabric to the side of your face and provides a really good seal. Typically where you'll get leakage will be around the eyes, on the sides, and right here where the bottom piece and the side piece, the front piece connects to, the two pieces connect. And this is typically where I get some air leakage. But on this mask, the fit was so good, I didn't actually have to pull the ear loops too tightly. Everything just sort of sat well on my face. So I really enjoyed wearing this mask. This was my favorite so far. So I'm wearing the mask now, and so we can look at some of the fit directly on my face. So with the garden wire, the very long garden wire that's over 4 inches long, I can shape it not just around my nose, but it actually goes right up to here, so just along this whole area, which is where there's often a lot of leakage. So even sometimes with a nose bridge, it's not enough. We need to press it down here so that we don't get the air leakage, and it really helps to keep the mask in place. And underneath, the elastic allows for a really comfortable fit underneath. I can open my mouth very comfortably, and the mask hardly moves, and I feel that this gathering in the front actually gives my mouth and chin just more ability to move. And here you can tell also, I'll do it on this side actually, with the elastics on the sides and brought in slightly, there's no gaping at all, and the distance between the elastics here is consistent with the area that the elastic has to go around at the ear level. If it's too wide, the elastic has to go towards the ear in a V shape, and that creates the gaping where you could have quite a bit of leakage coming out from the sides. So that's super important. The sides, keeping those sides really flat, really shaping the nose and getting some nice adjustment under the chin. And if the air is flowing nicely through the mask, there'll be no need for any leakage or cheating around the mask. So I hope you found this useful as a way to maybe adjust your masks a little bit more precisely, especially if you're making a mask for yourself. You can certainly try out different things and different fits, and just to get the best mask you possibly can for yourself. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.